business and about Be matching, man. I got it. Good to go.
Inside.
All right, so good. So, folks, again, welcome to the Entrepreneur Corner. My name is Shedron Collins. I'm the CEO of Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago. And for this corner, we're going to interview one of our alumni, recent alumni from the last cohort of 2025, right? And allow him to introduce himself and his business, and then we're going to mind his business a little bit and talk about things going forward. So, Savion, want to go ahead?
Correct. So good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Shedron, for the invite. My name is Savian and I'm the founder of Words at Work, a communication company that transforms events into experiences. We do that in a range of ways, but all in all, it's just a blessing to be able to use my voice to add value to the world, you know. So thankful to be able to meet Shedron and the whole team and get some good insights. So excited for the chat here today.
All right, nice. So, Words of Work. Where did the name come from? Let's figure that out first.
Yeah. So words at Work was a brainchild that came after I began to really understand what the world of work entailed. So in 2017, that's when I first credit this speaking journey started. That's when I went to university. I was a university student. My brother was 2 years above me. He started DJing. So just as a way of aligning us connecting, I said, you know what, let me hop on the mic. And that was just for fun, just for all kicks and good vibes. But after a while, I began to realize that the things I'm saying, yes, it's hyping people in the crowd, but people are excited to hear what I have to share. And that made me kind of get a little name on campus. But after a while, I began to have a hard time as an international student on campus. So for me, kind of turned to motivational speaking, where I was taking what I was seeing in front of me, what I was feeling within me, and speaking on it. And it wasn't intentional to be motivational speaking, it was just me sharing ideas, you know. This is me having a hard time in school, dealing with the winds of change. And I say, well, if the trees could blow in the breeze and come back to where they rest and be comfortable and calm, maybe I could also be comfortable and calm regardless of how my life is moving around. And these kind of things just started to flow, just started to happen. And I kind of always had a knack for words, but never before had I done it in this way. And after a while, I began to share the messages, and people began to reach out to me and tell me that exactly what you shared in this message is exactly what I need to hear. And that made me realize that even though my words are from me, my words might not only be for me. And I realized that words can work in two ways. Words could either build up or words could break down. Somebody tell you something that hurt your feelings, break you down. Somebody tell you something that motivates you, bring you down. But somebody gives you a word of encouragement. Somebody gives you a word of enlightenment. It could build you up. So I said to myself, well, if I'm going to use my voice, if I'm going to use my words, I hope my words could do good work in people's lives. So I said, well, regardless of what I'm doing, regardless of what area, what service the business offers, I want my words to work in good ways. So when you hear my words, you know my words are at work, my words are with purpose, and I'm speaking for a reason. So that's where the idea came from.
Nice. And well, I guess some quotes inside there I could probably write down some and use it later on for myself. Right.
As you work at work.
All right. So let's kind of backtrack, and we talked about how the genesis of the idea came about and the kind of direction it's taking it from now. If you had to describe who the business is targeting right now, how would you describe that?
So it's interesting because I started in 2017 getting into the space of speaking. And during that time, my motivational speaking was for university students because that's who I was and that's who I wanted to help. Now, fast forward 8 years later, seeing different ways to speak, seeing different things I could use my voice with, I'm actually now getting back to my target audience, which is specifically young professionals. So I want to speak to those who are just out of university, entering the world of work, or those even in the world of work now, and are looking for ways to work, looking for ways that work for them. They're looking to build a life for themselves. They're trying new things. They're being faced with new things, faced with new challenges. And these are people that I kind of really see myself best able to help because I know what it's like to now enter this space. I know what it's like to want to get into rooms, but they're having a hard time pushing the door. Then when you get into the room, what do you then say? How do you then show up as yourself? How do you then be yourself? So that's who I'm really speaking to. A lot of my topics about workplace wellness, employee engagement, being a young professional, being accountable, self-leadership, inspiration, motivation, and lack of procrastination, all these things really speak, and they are for that group, but these are topics that apply to everybody. So I find like when I do trainings on public speaking and stage confidence, the same people who are there, their parents also benefit. They could take that to their aunties and their uncles. So, and I kind of learned that through you all as well, that focusing on one group would allow me to direct my energy, but the energy could benefit other people. So for me, in this, and the reason I started IBTT was really for this branch of the business, the corporate training side, the personal development side, and that's who I'm speaking to.
Yeah. And well, so we also do some work with OJT as well, right? At YBTT. And we always talk about, but I like to pull from JT and say, here's a line, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, right? You kind of treat yourself as a business. And I'm here you talking about helping persons kind of set the direction, even if you're not going to the entrepreneurial side of things and you're going into the career development side of things, it kind of becomes you are the business, right?
Correct.
And the value that you create for the company is where you're leveraging. How do you create more value? How do you ensure that you're getting money for your value? And we talk about the business model canvas. We even treat that as looking at it from a you perspective as a business. What are your key resources, the key activities you're skilled at? What are the key partnerships? Because you're coming into an organization, are you networking? Right? Are you building partnerships within the organization? So I'm seeing the synergies happening there. So it's 8 years, right? You tell us a little bit about, I heard a little bit about the upward part of the journey. I want to hear about the hard times.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always those that really kind of define the jury themselves. So, and we can take it all the way back. Like when I was in school, I had no worries. I was a student. I mean, I had worries, but my worries weren't real worries at the time. Everything is perspective. But I was pushing out videos every day because it was easy to create content. I was on fire. I had the momentum. I was going well. When I left university and I was out of the context, I realized that I was very confident in the context of the university because I was my best self at that level. But when I came back home, my wife and I, we had our first son. I'm now at the portion where I have to enter the world of work. I realized that what I was doing in school and what I was doing for events work, I had little to no control over me being the one doing the speaking. And I realized that you being the person who is creating the value, unless you find ways to put that value into the market, you're going to starve. So I felt so out of sorts because when I came back home, I was like, you were the man in school, you were doing events, you were hustling, you were talking, you were training. You come back home and you kind of feel like you don't know what to do. So that hit me with like a huge sense of imposter syndrome and a huge sense of what was I really doing? And am I really the person that I believe I am? It's kind of like if you're a warrior and you place a lot of pride, a lot of strength in your shield and your sword, without that shield and that sword and without a war, what is a warrior? So the low time for me was seeing, okay, this is the reality. I have a soon-to-be wife. I have a young son. I have these dreams. I know I could be a speaker. I know there's value in speaking. I know I could do training. I know I could do motivational speaking. But how do I do that? And how do I tell the world I can do that? That was a huge low point for me. Honestly, I stopped speaking. So between 2020 and 2023, I went kind of silent because I felt like I can't try to uplift somebody else if I myself am not uplifted. And that period of time was a lot of frustration because you know there's something that you could be doing. There's something that you should be doing. There are people asking you why you're not doing the thing that you could do, but I just couldn't get over that transition. And at that point, I felt like, okay, well, that was nice, but maybe that's not it. Because I was a mic man in university. I was hosting parties, but come back home. I don't want to be out at night anymore. I don't want to leave my wife and my son home all the time. I don't want to build a business that takes, I don't want to build a business that's intended for my family, but takes me away from my family. So it was a lot of what is business, what is value, what is service, what do you do, what's an entrepreneur, and a lot of figuring out myself and getting over myself to then be able to share myself. Honestly, since 2023, a lot of that clarity has come, and the low times have more been like seasonal changes. I've realized like business isn't always up, is up and it's down, it's around and around. But that's definitely what I'd categorize as my biggest low. That feeling of insecurity and lack of clarity and not doing what I know I could have been doing. That was rough to go through, honestly.
So who motivates the motivator?
Who motivates the motivator? That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
So I guess so I'm just going back to that those times where you feel that, well, you feel like you really need somebody to motivate you. Where do you turn right now? In terms of, do you look for books? Are you looking at speakers? Do you have a mentor? Those kind of things. Just give me a sense of who motivates the motivator in this sense.
Yeah. So for me, first and foremost, it's definitely my family, my wife and my sons, to remind me that there's purpose in this process, and I'm building this not just for me, you know. I remember when I came back home, and I don't know if it's a man thing, but when I came back home, we have our son. I'm telling my wife, all right, I had to become a millionaire tomorrow. I had to earn 20,000 tomorrow. You know, we need life insurance, we need car insurance, we need a vehicle, we need a home. How much for a home? And I went gung ho into it. And my wife, she just looks at me, she says, but see, like right now, we're okay. We don't need the house right now. We don't need the car right now. And yes, these things we're gonna work towards, but here's where we are. And honestly, since the jump, she has just been that back to reality. That she's just been able to bring me back and realize that what you're thinking about isn't wrong per se, and what has you frustrated is valid. However, there's some other things that you're not considering here. So she is definitely a huge help, a huge support in the business. For me, then outside of my family, then comes to other founders. I love to talk to businessmen. I love to talk to other entrepreneurs and hear their stories. A lot of the lows that they share make my lows look like nothing at all, you know? So honestly, just getting out of myself, speaking to family, speaking to somebody who's walked the journey, somebody who, so I talk to the person who knows me, I talk to the person who knows the path that I'm on, and then ideally the people who would have successfully taken the path. So mentors, books, that's where I go to. That's my trifecta. So what I do now is that based on the type of advice that I need, or based on the intensity of the feeling, I would kind of pick and choose. So if I feel more unclear, it'll be a mentor, it might be a book, it might be a podcast about an entrepreneur or a story. If I feel uncertain in myself, if I feel uncertain with my progress, it's my person. You know, if it's advice, if it's any kind of uncertainty, like technical information, books, podcasts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the challenge that a lot of young entrepreneurs have is that they're judging their journey on the now and on the past or the potential future. But the really way to really judge that journey is to live the journey, and then you can look back, because you might be feeling a mistake now, but it actually be an opportunity next time.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm writing
And
that down.
yeah,
I'm writing that down.
a challenge that you're currently having was actually a stepping stone, was building you back for next challenge that you had to take, right? And that's kind of what the entrepreneurial journey goes through. So let's go through your jumpstart journey now. Let's switching a little bit. So, so for those who are listening as well, our jumpstart program, can I? Yes, we're dealing with with the business, but most importantly, we're dealing with the entrepreneur. And we start with that first question. But for those who are already in business like yourself, the first question that we want Jumpstart to answer for persons is this business the right fit for me? Right, Savion, did I lose you? Testing. All right, so if anybody on the live hearing me still, let me know. Let me make sure if it's on his end. All right, I think we lost him for a while. Hope the question wasn't that hard. Right, but he should be joining soon. So I was talking a little bit about the JumpStart program while we wait until he comes back. We talk a little bit about the JumpStart program. The first part of the JumpStart program really deals with that first question of, is this business the right fit for me? And for that, we actually dive into the personal stock taking profile. And with that, we answer a couple questions. So who you are, or who are you? Right? Tell us your passion, your purpose, things that you deem that you're on this planet for, right? As a purpose. And then we ask you the question of, what skills do you have? And how do you utilize those skills? What experiences do you have from the past? And how those experiences could actually come into play. And then we go into, from the network, right? Who's there to support you? What's your network looking like, right? And then what other resources do you currently have? And are you building an idea, or are you building a business that matches the persons that you know, the support system that you have, the purpose and your passion, the skills that you have, and the resources that you have? Right, you're back. Right, so I was giving you insight.
I'm gonna switch locations. I think I'm not sure if it was my wife or your wife, Best. Give me 1 second. Let me
No problem. So while you move around, I'm kind of giving some introduction of JumpStart, so at the same time as well. So, like I said, so the personal stock taking kind of helps you analyze what resources you have, what networks you have, what are your passions and what you're passionate about right now, and then looking at your skills, your experiences, and helping you decide, okay, this business that I'm going into, or this business that I plan to go into, is it the right fit for me? And is it the right fit for me right now? If I don't have the proper resources, can I actually execute this business? Or am I just going to be remaining in that idea stage until I have the resources? So you want to make sure that you're thinking of, and then you're passionate, because we talk about the ups and downs of a business, right? You may have in those early stages a little bit more downs than ups. Is this something that you're passionate about, right? Is this something you believe that it's your purpose in life? And if it's not hitting that passion and purpose, when the hard times come, right, without passion and purpose, and most likely without profit, right, there's problems. Right? So we want to get back into is how do you, when we look at the personal stock taking, did it help you decide that words for work is a right fit for you?
Definitely, definitely. So it's interesting because the first business that I officially started was a landscaping company, and that was called Happy Hedges, and it taught me a lot because I didn't realize that there are businesses that, as you said, you are the business, or the business is to be operated by you. So
Yeah.
as a landscaper, I buy my tools, I go out and cut grass. That's it. Yeah, I'm doing the work, but I am not the work. So
Mm.
once I could buy a lawnmower, once I could buy a weed whacker, a leaf blower, I could do what I have to do. But in this area now, with me being the business, there's so many more things that stock taking, stockpiling portfolio allowed me to take into consideration that I was feeling, but I couldn't label. So when we highlighted all the categories and I went through all the categories, I said, well, yeah, this is how I feel about this, and this is why I do this, and this is why I do it. When I saw it all come together, I realized that this is why this business, and I believe every idea, at least for me, maybe it could be my inexperience in business, but for me, especially at this stage, my business is a representation of myself and an extension of myself. So it's almost like, how can I give of my best in the best way possible to earn the best profit possible, or to have the impact I want to have? So this stock taking really clarified a lot of things to me, and really made me realize that I have a lot of things at my disposal and within my personal inventory that I could capitalize on to have not only success but also fulfillment in business. So really, really helpful.
All right, nice. So you kind of made the decision between the two business ideas, right? So you figure out which one is the best fit for you. And that doesn't mean that the other idea is I never do it. It
Yeah.
might just be something that you do later on. Right? But the fit right then. And I always tell entrepreneurs the goal is to stop working in the business and start working on the business as much as possible. Right? And I always say when choosing an idea, you have to love it, but just don't be in love with it, because you have to figure out ways that you can change the idea and make it better. But if you're always in love with it, you would never see its fault, right? that Valentine's that you had the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That you're crushing on. That you're in love with. You ain't see the faults and everybody telling you, well, right? You ain't see the red flags. Right? But within your business, you have to realize that you have to be the one to take a step back and look at it and say, okay, well, what needs to change? How do I improve? How do I improve this business? So in going through the program, were there any improvements or changes that you would have made to your current business structure?
So for me, there were many like key takeaways from this cohort and from this program. The stockpiling was one. The bird in the hand philosophy was one. And I think a lot of my frustration came from thinking that I didn't have what I needed to have. So when I began to assess what I did have, I began to realize that there are many things I can play to and speak to instead of trying to create something new. So for me, it's been a real turn inward to first ask, okay, well, this is the thing I want to do, but how can I use what I already have to get something that I want, something that I don't have? So it's been a lot of internal reflection and a lot of me saying, okay, well, how can I work smarter? And just as you said, working on the business and not only in the business.
Yeah.
So being able to speak on it, but when you talk about the business canvas model, I'll talk about that part more, but being able to speak on the business and being able to represent the business itself and understand that this is a thing and I am the one operating the thing. This is how we could best operate it. And there is a level of love, but as you already said, you love it, but you're not in love with it. You know?
Yep. And you brought up the business model canvas, so we're going straight into it one time. Right? So tell us your experience in doing your own business model canvas.
Yeah, so I never assessed my business before. And it was crazy for me because being able to probably say, well, you know, I speak in 8 years now, obviously not at this level and not in this way, but if I try to trace it back, it's been some time. So for me to see, well, okay, these are the actual areas that you identify if you really want a sustainable and a speakable business. I found that the reason I got a lot of not I don't want to say doubt, but let's use the word doubt. Was because I couldn't properly put into words what exactly the value I was bringing was. And it was weird because as a public speaker, a motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, everybody was like, all right, cool, just do that. We know you as a speaker. But I said, well, it's so much more than just being a speaker. It's so much more than just saying something nice. Because who do I say these nice things to? Who best benefits from these nice things? Am I going to quantify the things I'm saying? Am I going to quantify the things that I'm sharing? How do I bring structure to it? So a lot of the frustration came from me having passion, having experience, having the potential and the talent to do it, but not having a structure to do it within. And because of that, it wasn't repeatable. So what I didn't mention was that what brought me out of that little hiatus of not speaking was I got into coaching, which is another aspect, another potential avenue of public speaking. And I never knew you could do that before. And it was eye-opening because that was the highest I could have earned in a single transaction, in a single interaction. But when I did it, I realized that because of how I was doing it, it wasn't enjoyable. So it was the same speaking, but it wasn't the same speaking. It was helping people, but it wasn't helping me at the same time. And then when I look at the business campus model now, and I look at the key partners, I look at the customer segments, I look at the channels, I look at the different ways I could focus and improve on, I feel like now, not only can I enjoy the business, but I can fine tune pieces and change little pieces to change the end product. And I don't have to start a business over, you know? So it's just been really, really insightful, really, really helpful from many layers and levels of the business.
And I tell persons when you're looking at value and then trying to enhance your value, I mean, let's talk in business model canvas terms. If you all want to know more about it, come JumpSTART. Right? And so when we talk about enhancing your value, looking at the feasibility side of your canvas, right? Your key activities, what are the things that, or the trainings that you need to go to? What are the things that you need to enhance from a skill level and activity level? Things that you may not even talk about marketing, you talk about research, you talk about new techniques that are coming out, right? How are you even planning to use AI into your business? What are the resources that you might need to be saving up to purchase to come into the business? And then the key partnerships, right? We tend to say it's all about who you know in business in Trinidad, but are we out there trying to get to know more persons?
Correct, correct. And
Right?
that was the whole thing. It's like I know people know me, and I know that once I get on a stage, I could do my thing. But
Mhm.
how do you intentionally get on those stages? How do you intentionally get in those spaces, and then how do you systematize it? Because
Yeah.
it's like I never forget. I didn't know tell you that, but the business we do event hosting, corporate training, and advertising. So
Mhm.
I do vocal and visual arts, right? And I never forget the first ad, first voiceover project I did was with UNICEF and Digicel. Fantastic opportunity, very handsomely paid opportunity. I never forget. After that, I was like, wow, I reach. That is it. No problem. But I had no way of getting another client like that. I had no way of figuring out how do I appeal to people like that. So there was no reproducibility. There was nothing I could have done to make it happen again unless the opportunity came to me again.
Yeah.
So I feel like a big part of why there's this great divide between self-employed and otherwise employed is because there's a level of expectation that comes with the position. You have your job description, you have your time, you have your role, you have your uniform, you do everything, you do it like as you do it. In business, the more that we can systematize and bring that structure to the activities that we're doing, the more comfortable things are, the more relaxed things feel, and the more impactful they could actually become because now I can actually speak to those people who actually want to speak to me. I don't have to feel like I'm knocking on somebody's door offering them something that they don't even want. I'm like, how can I be the best fit for the specific problem that they have? And how can I get to meet those people more? So definitely fine tuning my whole networking approach. And that's one big change I made since doing JumpStart. A lot of the conversations that I'm having more now are a lot more strategic. They're a lot more of, all right, this is who I can help, this is how I can help them. Let's have that conversation. Let's not hope that we could get to that conversation maybe, you know? So it's definitely networking is important, but it's a lot of how do you start those conversations? How do you create a space where they can happen organically? But a lot of it is inorganic. It's you doing the
Yeah.
work prior to.
Right. Nice. So I think let's talk next steps. What's next?
Yeah, so for me, the reason I joined Jumpstart was because I really wanted to focus on bringing a system and bringing a structure to the corporate training aspect of the business. That to me is me getting back to myself, getting back to the original purpose, the full start, the motivational speaking. That's why I want to do more of fully and intentionally. So event hosting kind of handles itself because of a brand is building and because I'm getting in the most spaces and because I'm actually doing more specific marketing for that. But for me specifically this year and moving forward, it's a lot of workshops, it's a lot of trainings, and the goal is to be able to productize my training. So I don't want to only be able to impact somebody when I get into the room with that somebody. I want to be able to impact them in their room at home. I want them to be able to download a piece of my philosophy, download a piece of this idea, and make it personal for them. So aside from a website, that's a big goal for this year. Is to really create products based on the IP that I have, that I use, base my trainings on,
Mhm.
and get it out there so that I can operate the business and not only be the business. That's the future of Words at Work. Words working constantly, creatively, automatically, um, and outside of me, E.
Right, nice. So how can person get in contact with you?
Yeah, man. So Words at Work does not yet have a website, but we will have a website very soon. But I'm a sole trader, so that means I am the business and the business is me. So my name is Savian Book. You could find me on Instagram under that name or Master Book. I'm on LinkedIn as well, doing a lot of good stuff. I'm on LinkedIn, really enjoying that platform right now. So that's where you could find me.
Yeah, and if you
Instagram,
have an
Facebook.
email address, you can share as well.
Yeah, of course. Words at Work, tt@gmail.com for all the inquiries and propositions. That's where you
Right.
could find me. Okay. Words at Work. That's it.
Right. So I guess the last thing is you can't let a motivational speaker come on and not give a little motivation to end things off, right? So what do you have for us to encourage anybody who is um, either taking on the journey of entrepreneurship or probably on a downward part of their journey in entrepreneurship and just needs a little kick to go back up? What do you have for us?
What I would say is that as an entrepreneur, but more so as a young professional, somebody who is caring about what they're doing and wants to work well and find ways that work for them and ideally do good work, you have to understand that you are in yourself a trailblazer. But because you're a trailblazer, that time is going to get hot. It's going to get heated. And imagine a trailblazer sounds nice, but a lot of the blazing is you getting through bush. Imagine you're trying to navigate this big field of tall grass and you have no idea what you're doing. You're swinging this cutlass crazy, crazy, crazy. And you feel like you're not making any progress. You might be getting cut by razor grass. You might be getting tired from all the swinging that you're doing. But when you look back and you can see the changes that you've made within yourself, the changes that you've made around you just by choosing to do something different, to pursue something different, you realize there was purpose in that process. So don't be afraid of the heat. When things get hard, when things get hot, when you feel tired, when you feel stressed, understand that what you're doing is building a path for yourself that more than likely was never made before. So you're going to have that friction, but the journey and the experience of building something for yourself or simply becoming the person who has tried is worth its weight in gold. I think entrepreneurship is an experience that I would like everybody to experience, or at least certain elements of it, because I would not have been the person that I am today if I didn't choose to think beyond the person that I was yesterday. If I didn't choose to think that I could be like Jim Rohn, I could be the next Miles Monroe, I could be next Tony Robbins. It very much is within your grasp, it's within your reach. It's going to take some sweat and tears, but thankfully there are people who sweat before you, who went through it before you, and you're not alone in the journey. So find some good people, find some mentorship, get into some programs, because there's a lot of things at your disposal simply waiting just for you to ask. So just use your words to work, and you'll find that your work will work for you in time to come.
All right, nice. So, folks, I hope those words worked for you, right? Right. And as always, it's been real. It's been nice. It's been real nice. We'll see you all next time. Take care, man.
Thank you very much, Jedron.